Hello there, and welcome to the Serene Scroll. I am so glad you found your way here to this quiet space. Perhaps it has been a long day filled with noise and haste. Now is the time to let all of that gently fall away. Find a comfortable position where your body can feel supported and at ease. Allow your breath to soften, to deepen, finding its own natural rhythm. Tonight, we are beginning a journey to a distant world, a quiet voyage through the stars, carried only on the sound of a voice. And just before we begin, if these quiet explorations help you unwind or give you a peaceful way to end your day, consider gently tapping the like button and subscribing to the channel. It is a silent, simple way to help this space of calm grow. Now, close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and let the world outside fade into the background. Our journey begins not in the cold vacuum of space, but here, in the gentle stillness of twilight. The air around you grows cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant sleeping flowers. The world is bathed in a soft, indefinite light, a blend of deep indigo and the last embers of a faded orange sunset. This is the liminal hour, the threshold between day and night, a time when the world holds its breath. From this quiet vantage point, perhaps a balcony overlooking a sleeping city or a soft blanket laid on a silent hill, you turn your gaze toward the horizon, to that painted edge where the sun has just dipped from view. The sky is not yet black. It is a deep, velvety canvas, and the first, boldest stars are beginning to prick through. Venus perhaps hangs like a brilliant lantern, or Jupiter, a steady and regal king. But these are not the light we seek tonight. Our attention is drawn lower, closer to the lingering glow of the sun, into the haze that astronomers call the crepuscular rays, the sun's final outstretched fingers. And there, if you are patient, if the air is clear and your timing is perfect, you might see it, a tiny, fleeting spark. It is not magnificent. It does not command the eye like a comet or a full moon. It is a humble point of light, easily lost, easily mistaken for a high-flying aircraft or a distant flickering lamp. This is Mercury, the closest planet to our sun, and yet for us on Earth, one of the most elusive. It lives its entire life in the glare of our star, a shy companion that never strays far from the solar furnace. It rises just before the sun, a herald of the dawn, or it sets just after it, an epilogue to the day. For this reason, for millennia, it was a world seen only by those who were looking for it, a secret whispered at the edge of day. Imagine the patience of the first skywatchers. Without telescopes, without charts, without the certain knowledge of what they were seeing, they would return to this same spot night after night, dawn after dawn. They would watch this tiny spark drift against the backdrop of the seemingly fixed stars. Most lights in the sky were dependable, anchored in their constellations, returning to the same place season after season, like old friends. But this one and a few others were different. They moved. They were wanderers. The ancient Greeks called them planets, the wandering stars. To them, this swift, elusive light was not a rock, not a world, but a god. Seeing its speed, how it danced at the sun's edge, and then vanished, they named it Hermes, the messenger of the gods, the divine herald with winged sandals who could travel between the world of the mortals, the heights of Olympus, and even the depths of the underworld. He was the patron of travelers, of merchants, of thieves, and of boundaries, the one who existed on the threshold. And what a perfect name for this tiny world forever living on the boundary between the blinding light of the sun and the deep, dark night of the cosmos. The Romans saw the same swiftness and named it Mercury, their equivalent messenger god. In ancient Babylon, it was Nabu, the god of wisdom and writing. In India, it was Buddha, associated with the intellect and communication. Across cultures, across continents, humanity looked up at that fleeting spark and saw the same essential quality: speed, intellect, and the crossing of thresholds. They felt its character without ever knowing its true nature. They saw a personality written in the language of light and movement. Think of that for a moment. The human mind's innate ability to find story, to see a character in a point of light. We are pattern-seeking creatures, meaning-making animals. And for thousands of years, the story of Mercury was one of myth and magic, a divine messenger flitting across the stage of the heavens. It was a character in the grand cosmic play. Its movements were read as omens, its appearances and disappearances woven into the fabric of human destiny. It wasn't a place one could go. It was a presence one could feel, a celestial influence. Then slowly, a new kind of story began to be told. It was a quieter story, one told not in temples, but in observatories. A story told in the language of mathematics and observation. Men like Copernicus and Galileo turned their rudimentary telescopes to the heavens and began to unravel the old tales. They watched the wanderers with a new kind of eye. They saw that Venus had phases just like our moon. They saw that Jupiter had its own moons, tiny wanderers orbiting a wanderer. The grand, flat tapestry of the sky began to reveal its depth, its profound three-dimensionality. And Mercury, the shy messenger, was part of this revolution. It was no longer just a god. It was a world, a sphere of rock and metal, following the same laws of gravity and motion that governed an apple falling from a tree. This was a monumental shift in human consciousness. To look at that tiny spark and understand that it is a place with mountains and valleys, craters and plains, a surface baking under a sun that would appear 3 times larger in its sky than in our own. The thought is almost too vast to hold. That faint, unassuming light is a world of unimaginable heat and profound silence. From our quiet place on this gentle earth, the coolness of the evening, a welcome comfort, we look toward that horizon. The color has drained from the sky, now leaving a deeper, more profound darkness. Mercury has likely slipped below the horizon, its brief performance over for the night. But its presence lingers in the mind. It is a paradox, this neighbor of ours. It is the second closest planet to Earth after Venus. Yet we know so little of it. We have mapped the entire surface of Mars in high resolution, sent probes to the swirling storms of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn, and even flown past the distant icy worlds of Pluto and beyond. But Mercury remains shrouded in difficulty. Its proximity to the Sun makes it a treacherous target for our spacecraft. The Sun's immense gravity pulls and tugs, requiring incredible energy and precision to achieve a stable orbit. The heat is so intense it can melt lead, and the radiation is fierce enough to destroy unprotected electronics. To send a probe to Mercury is one of the most difficult journeys in celestial mechanics. It is easier in some ways to send a mission to the outer solar system than it is to visit this world next door. And so it remains a mystery, a world of extremes. One side bakes at over 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to turn rock into a shimmering molten sea. The other side, the one turned away from the sun, plunges into a cold that rivals the darkest corners of the solar system, nearly 200 degrees below zero. It is a world of violent contrast, with no atmosphere to speak of, no blanket of air to distribute the heat or soften the light. The sky there would be forever black, even in the blinding glare of midday. The stars would be visible at all times, a silent, unblinking audience to the planet's slow, ponderous rotation. Tonight, however, we are not concerned with the harsh realities of its surface. We are here in the soft embrace of Earth's atmosphere, feeling the gentle rotation of our own world. We are looking out, not with the cold eye of a scientist, but with the quiet wonder of a dreamer. That point of light represents a fundamental human impulse to look up and to wonder what is out there. It is a bridge between the world we know, the solid ground beneath us, the gentle air we breathe, and the vast, silent, and unknown cosmos that surrounds us. It reminds us that our perception is limited. We see a tiny, peaceful star, but we are looking at a world of fire and ice. We see a simple dot, but it is a complex sphere with a history stretching back 4.5 billion years, a history written in the language of asteroid impacts and volcanic flows. We are seeing only a glimmer of the truth, a single pixel of a much larger reality. And in that recognition, there is a profound humility. It is a quiet acknowledgement of the universe's immense scale and our small, precious place within it. The journey we are about to embark upon is not one of spacecraft and rocket fuel, but of imagination guided by knowledge. We will attempt to bridge that immense distance to travel from this familiar earthly twilight to the stark, silent landscapes of the messenger planet. We will let go of the comforting blue of our own sky and prepare to witness a world painted in monochrome under a sun of impossible size and power. Take one last slow breath of this cool night air. Feel the gentle gravity that holds you to this world, this beautiful living sphere we call home. For to truly understand another world, we must first appreciate the journey of leaving our own. We must feel the pull of our origins, even as we cast our gaze outward toward that faint and distant light. Our voyage begins now with the first, most crucial step, casting off from the shores of this blue marble and drifting out into the silent, star-strewn sea. Our journey has begun. With each quiet breath, we feel a gentle sense of release, a letting go of the ground beneath us. Imagine, if you will, a deep and resonant hum, a vibration that you feel more in your bones than in your ears. It is not the roar of fire and force you might expect, but a steady, powerful thrum, the feeling of immense energy being carefully, precisely unleashed. This is the sound of departure, the sound of casting off. For so long, humanity has been tethered to this world by an invisible, unbreakable thread. We call it gravity. It is the persistent, loving pull of home that holds us to the surface, that brings a thrown stone back to the earth, that keeps the oceans in their basins and the air wrapped around us like a blanket. To leave, we cannot simply rise. We must escape. There is a precise number to this freedom, a specific speed known as escape velocity. It is the answer to a question the universe is always asking: are you moving fast enough to break free? Below this speed, you are simply taking a long leap. You will climb high, pause at the apex of your journey, and then, inevitably, you will fall back into the warm, familiar embrace of Earth's gravity. It is a cosmic game of catch, and the planet never misses. But if you can reach that speed, that magical threshold, something changes. The thread slackens. The pull becomes a memory. You are no longer just leaping. You are leaving. You do not fall back. You continue onward, coasting on the momentum of that initial perfect push, forever unbound from the world that gave you form. Our vessel has achieved this. It has answered the universe's question with a resounding yes. The hum softens now. The great effort is over. We are drifting. We are free. And so, we turn our attention to the window. Look, the world we know is changing before our very eyes. At first, the change is subtle. The patchwork of field, cities, and forests you might see from a plain window begins to blend and soften. The sharp edges of coastlines blur into gentle curves. Borders drawn on maps vanish completely, revealing the simple, undivided truth of the land and the sea. The world not as a collection of nations, but as a single living organism. As we drift further, the curve of the earth becomes undeniable. It is no longer a distant concept, a fact learned in a classroom, but a direct visual experience. The horizon is no longer a straight line in the distance, but a magnificent sweeping arc against the velvet black of space. And along this arc, a soft, ethereal glow. This is the atmosphere our sky seen from the outside. It is an impossibly thin layer of luminous blue, a fragile veil separating the familiar world of warmth and air from the cold, silent vacuum. From here, it looks so delicate, a precious shimmering membrane protecting all the life we have ever known. We continue to pull away, and the perspective shifts again. Continents we know from globes and maps swim into view. The familiar swirl of a hurricane over the ocean, the vast green expanse of a rainforest, the stark tan plains of a desert. But now, they are not places to go, but features on a sphere. The scale is immense, humbling. All of human history, all its triumphs and tragedies, its art and its wars has unfolded on the surface of that beautiful silent ball. Now it is shrinking. The great continents become mere patterns in the blue and white. The entire planet, once our whole world, is now small enough to be covered by a thumb held at arm's length. It hangs in the darkness like a single perfect marble, a swirl of cerulean blue, stark white clouds, and earthy browns. There is no sound. The silence of space is not an absence of noise. It is a presence, a deep, profound quiet that fills everything. In this silence, the sight of our home floating and alone is almost overwhelming. A feeling of profound connection and also of profound distance can coexist in a moment like this. We are children of that world, and for the first time we are seeing it from afar, seeing its true place in the cosmos. But our journey is not a straight line away from it. To reach the innermost planet, Mercury, we cannot simply point our craft and fire the engines. The gravitational pull of the sun is too powerful. To go directly would require an incredible amount of energy to slow down, like trying to paddle a canoe upstream against the current of a mighty river. So we must be clever. We must use the very force we are fighting. We must dance with gravity. Our path is an elegant sweeping curve, a long, graceful arc that will take us on a grand tour of the inner solar system. Think of it not as a direct flight, but as a ship tacking against the wind, using the currents to guide its way. We will not head straight for Mercury. Instead, we will use the gravity of other worlds as a brake, as a way to shape our course. This is the art of the gravity, a cosmic game of billiards played with planets and immense patience. Our first major turn will be guided by Venus. We will swing by that cloud-shrouded world, allowing its gravity to catch us, to bend our path, and to slow our descent toward the sun. We will do this again and again, and even use the gravity of Mercury itself in a series of flybys, each one refining our orbit, bringing us closer to our final destination. It is a journey that will take years, a testament to the fact that the most efficient path is rarely the most direct one. It is a lesson in yielding, in working with the great forces of the universe, rather than struggling against them. For now, we are in the first leg of this long, quiet voyage. The Earth is a brilliant blue star behind us, gradually dimming. The moon, its faithful companion, is a smaller, grayer point of light nearby. We have cast off from the only shore we have ever known, and our vessel is now a silent ship on an immense and dark ocean. The ports of call on this journey are not islands, but entire worlds. As the light of our home planet recedes, another light grows in prominence. Ahead of us, the sun. It is no longer the familiar warm disk we see through the filter of our atmosphere. Here in the unfiltered void, it is a thing of fierce, absolute brilliance. A searing white fire that dominates the view, casting sharp black shadows. It does not just radiate light and heat, it breathes. It exhales a constant, invisible stream of particles, a current that flows outward through the entire solar system. We have left the gentle haven of Earth's magnetic field, that protective bubble that shielded us from the worst of this celestial river. Now we are sailing directly in it. This is our new environment, a vast and unseen medium filled with forces and energies we must navigate. We have left the familiar harbor, and now we must learn to read the currents of this new ocean, an invisible river flowing from the heart of the sun itself. The gentle hum of departure has faded, replaced by a silence so profound it seems to have weight and texture. Here in the space between worlds, the concept of sound itself begins to dissolve. There is no air to carry a whisper, no medium for an echo, and yet the environment is anything but still. We have cast off from the shores of our world, and now we are caught in a current. It is an invisible river, a force that flows without water, that pushes without wind, a constant steady breath exhaled from the heart of our solar system. This is the solar wind, and we are now sailing upon its silent, unending tide. Imagine a river not of liquid, but of light and energy. It does not rush or roar. Its movement is a vast, patient exodus of particles, a ceaseless stream of protons and electrons boiling away from the sun's corona, that ghostly million-degree atmosphere that shimmers around the star. They travel at unimaginable speeds, 1,000,000 miles an hour or more, flooding the entire system with the sun's elemental presence. This is not empty space. It is an extension of the star itself. We are traveling through the outer layers of the sun's own being. Feel that subtle pressure, that almost imperceptible push. It is the river's current guiding us inward deeper into the sun's gravitational well. Back on Earth, we were protected from this river, living at the bottom of a deep, calm sea, sheltered by the planet's magnetic field. That field, the magnetosphere, is a planetary grace, an invisible shield, a silent guardian that deflects the most energetic particles of the solar wind, wrapping the world in a protective embrace. We watched its effects from a distance as the beautiful shimmering curtains of the aurora, where the solar wind would kiss the edges of our atmosphere. But out here, we are no longer behind the shield. We are travelers on the open water. Our own vessel, this vessel of the mind, generates its own small protective field, a quiet hum of technology and intention that holds the harshest currents at bay. We can feel the cosmic river flowing around us, a constant stream of energy parting around our bubble of stillness. It is like resting in a glass-bottomed boat, watching the deep and powerful currents of the ocean glide by just inches away. As we drift deeper, the nature of the light begins to change. Sunlight in Earth's orbit is filtered, softened by its journey across 93 million miles. Here the distance is closing. The light is becoming purer, sharper. It feels ancient and unfiltered, carrying a raw, primal intensity. It is no longer the gentle, life-giving warmth we knew, but a presence that commands respect. The shadows it casts are no longer soft-edged and gray, but stark and absolute pools of the deepest black painted against surfaces of impossible brilliance. The spectrum of colors feels wider, more vivid. The stars, those distant suns, do not twinkle here. They are steady, piercing points of light, fixed in a velvet void, their ancient light unburdened by the haze of an atmosphere. This environment is alive with energy. The solar wind is not a uniform, gentle stream. Like any great river, it has its own weather, its own moods. The sun breathes and its exhalations vary in strength. Sometimes, the flow is a placid, steady current, what scientists call the slow solar wind. At other times, vast holes can open in the sun's corona, unleashing a torrent of high-speed particles, like a rapids in the river, doubling the speed of the current. And then there are the great storms. Imagine for a moment a disturbance on the surface of the sun. A vast, tangled loop of magnetic energy, held in check for days or weeks, finally snaps. It releases a colossal burst of radiation, a solar flare. A flash of intense light and energy radiates outwards at the speed of light, a silent thunderclap announcing the storm. Following this is an even grander event, a coronal mass ejection. A monumental bubble of plasma and magnetic field, billions of tons of the sun's own substance is heaved out into space. It is not a wave that crashes and is gone, but a great rolling swell that expands across the solar system, a tidal wave on the cosmic river. From our safe vantage point, we can witness this magnificent slow-motion event. We see the swell coming, a distortion in the flow, a ripple in the fabric of space. The pressure of the wind against our shields intensifies. The silent hum of our protective field rises in pitch, working harder to divert the oncoming tide of particles. There is no violence, no sound, only a profound sense of immense power, of forces beyond any human scale playing out according to ancient cosmic laws. It is humbling to be so small, a tiny vessel navigating an ocean of stellar energy. It reminds us that the universe is not a static backdrop of stars, but a dynamic, ever-changing stage of creation and release. This journey is not just about moving through space, but about learning to feel its pulse, to read its currents, to respect its power. The closer we get to our destination, the more powerful this river becomes. The warmth is no longer a gentle caress. It is a palpable heat that permeates everything. The density of particles in the solar wind increases. The radiation grows stronger. We are approaching the inner sanctum of the solar system, a region where only the most resilient worlds can survive. Any planet hoping to exist here must either have a powerful magnetic shield of its own, or be made of stern enough stuff to endure the relentless scouring of this stellar stream. Worlds without atmospheres or magnetospheres are laid bare. their surfaces directly exposed to this constant sandblasting of charged particles over billions of years. Their soil, their very rock, is weathered not by wind and water, but by the raw, unmediated breath of the sun. And now, as we sail these final intense currents, a change occurs. The steady flow of the river seems to deflect, to bend around something ahead. There is a presence in the void, a gravitational anchor pulling on the stream of particles, creating a wake. We are leaving the open ocean and approaching a coastline. The sun's light, so utterly dominant now, reflects off of something dark and solid. At first, it is just a subtle absence of stars, a tiny patch of blackness that is somehow deeper than the surrounding space. Then it resolves into a sliver, a crescent of gray ghost light against the glare. This is not the brilliant blue and white marble of our departure. There is no soft atmospheric haze to blur its edges. It hangs in the void with a stark, brutal clarity. The sunlight strikes its surface and reveals a landscape of extremes of blinding light and absolute shadow. The solar wind, the very river that carried us here, washes over it directly, a constant, unending storm that has shaped this world for eons. We have crossed the void. We have navigated the stellar river. And now, before us, hangs our destination, a world forged in fire and scoured by light. The messenger planet is waiting. The gentle hum of departure has faded, replaced by a silence so profound it seems to have weight and texture. Here in the space between worlds, the concept of sound itself begins to dissolve. There is no air to carry a whisper, no medium for an echo, and yet the environment is anything but still. We have cast off from the shores of our world, and now we are caught in a current. It is an invisible river, a force that flows without water, that pushes without wind, a constant steady breath of gravity pulling us ever inward toward the heart of the solar system. For weeks the view has been one of magnificent, unchanging darkness, punctuated by the steady, diamond-hard points of distant stars. The sun is no longer a gentle atmospheric glow. It is a blinding, unfiltered furnace, to one side a source of fierce and primal energy. But now something in this grand celestial tapestry begins to change. Among the fixed stars, one light behaves differently. It does not twinkle. It burns with a steady silver-white intensity. And day by day it grows. It is not a star, but a destination, a world. At first, it is simply the brightest object in a field of 1,000 others, a beacon in the void. This is Mercury, the swift messenger, living up to its name even from this distance, its rapid orbit making it dance around the sun. But as our journey shortens, its character transforms. The point of light softens at the edges, resolving itself into a tiny, perfect circle. A marble of light floating in black velvet. There is no blue haze of an atmosphere, no swirling white of clouds, no familiar green and brown of continents. There is only the disk itself, a flat, uniform shade of gray against the abyss. Slowly, inexorably, the sphere swells in our view. The journey's final hours are a lesson in perspective, a gradual unfolding of scale. What was a point then, a coin, now becomes a globe. And on the surface of this globe, features begin to emerge from the haze of distance. It is like approaching a long-rumored island, a land spoken of in myths, but never before seen with one's own eyes. The map is finally becoming the territory. The first details to resolve are not colors, but textures. The smooth pale gray is an illusion of distance. Up close, the surface is anything but smooth. It is pockmarked, scarred, and battered. Craters, thousands of them, millions perhaps. They are everywhere, superimposed upon one another in a chaotic, overlapping tapestry of ancient violence. Some are sharp and well-defined, with bright rays of ejected material splayed out around them, like a splash frozen in time. These are the newer arrivals, the more recent chapters in the planet's long story. Others are soft, degraded, their rims worn down by eons of subsequent smaller impacts, and the gentle but relentless tremor of the world itself. They are like ghosts of collisions past their stories, half erased, but still legible to a careful eye. As we draw closer still, the sheer density of these features is overwhelming. The surface is a library of cosmic collisions, a record of the solar system's turbulent youth written in stone. No patch of ground seems to have been spared. It is a testament to survival, a world that has endured a constant bombardment for more than 4 billion years and is still here, silently orbiting its star. A quiet feeling of recognition might surface a comparison to our own moon. The two bodies share a family resemblance. Both are gray, airless, and heavily cratered. They are siblings in stillness, but the resemblance is only skin deep. As we settle into a stable orbit circling this new world, the differences become clear. Mercury's face is not just cratered, it is wrinkled. Great winding cliffs some hundreds of miles long and over a mile high snake across the surface. These are the Lobat Scarp's features, born not from impact, but from within. They are the evidence of a planet that shrank as it cooled its crust, buckling and folding in on itself like the skin of a drying fruit. It tells a story not just of external assault, but of internal transformation. And then there is the color, or rather the lack of it. It is not the simple dusty gray of the moon. There are subtleties here, vast plains of darker, smoother material that seem to have flooded older, more rugged terrain. These are the ghost seas of Mercury, ancient lava flows that poured out from the planet's molten interior, burying the craters that came before. The palette is muted charcoal, slate ash, and stone, but within it there is a complex and profound beauty. It is the beauty of geology laid bare with no atmosphere, no water, and no life to soften its edges. We feel the planet's presence now, not just with our eyes, but as a subtle, insistent pull. We are captured in its gravitational embrace. And here lies one of Mercury's greatest paradoxes. It is the smallest of the 8 planets, barely larger than Earth's moon. From this vantage, it appears almost delicate, a tiny battered sphere, dwarfed by the immensity of space. Yet for its size it is incredibly dense, second only to Earth. Beneath this ancient cratered crust lies a massive iron core accounting for a staggering portion of the planet's mass. This is not a fragile, dusty ball of rock. It is a cannonball, a world with a heart of iron, its small frame hiding an immense weight and a history of unimaginable heat and pressure. This knowledge changes how we see it. The gray sphere below is not just a passive victim of celestial bombardment. It is a dense, powerful object with a potent inner life now dormant. We drift over the terminator, the stark, perfect line dividing day from night. On Earth, this transition is a gentle gradient of twilight, a soft blurring of colors as the sun dips below the horizon. Here, there is no such gentleness. The sun is either visible or it is not. On the day side, the surface is baked in a glare so intense it erases all but the harshest shadows. The heat is extreme enough to melt lead. But as we cross the line into darkness, the light vanishes instantly. The temperature plummets to hundreds of degrees below freezing. The shadows cast by crater rims are not filled with reflected light, but are pools of absolute black voids of cold and night. We are seeing a world of extremes, a place of brutal contrasts, where fire and ice exist inches apart, separated only by the presence or absence of a shadow. Orbiting this silent ancient world is a meditative experience. Each pass reveals a new vista, a new configuration of craters and cliffs, a new story to decipher. The sheer age of what lies below is palpable. We are looking at a surface that has remained largely unchanged for billions of years. While Earth was growing forests, carving canyons with rivers, and building cities, Mercury was simply collecting scars. It is a relic, a museum piece from the dawn of the solar system preserved in the vacuum of space. As our orbit continues, our gaze is repeatedly drawn to one particular feature, a structure so vast it defies the scale of everything around it. It is not just another crater among millions. On the sun-scorched plains of the dayside, we see a colossal circular basin ringed by concentric mountain ranges that ripple outward for thousands of miles. It is a disturbance in the planet's crust so profound that its effects are visible even on the opposite side of the world. This is not just a dent, it is a wound, a place where the planet itself was struck with such force that it almost shattered. The entire landscape here seems to bend and warp around this single defining event. This feature has a name that speaks of the fire of its creation. It is the defining chapter in Mercury's violent history, a story that we must now turn our attention to, for to understand this place is to understand the planet itself. It is the great scar of Caloris. As our journey carries us closer, the silent darkness of the void begins to yield to the glow of our destination, Mercury. A world of muted grays and ochres resolves from a point of light into a sphere of rock hanging in the blackness like a pearl. At this distance, its surface appears deceptively smooth, but as we draw nearer, the planet's true character reveals itself. It is a world not smoothed by time, but etched by it. Its face is a tapestry of craters, a testament to a long and violent history, a library written in the language of impact and fire. And among all its stories, one is inscribed on a scale so vast, so profound, that it defines an entire hemisphere. We are approaching the Caloris Basin. The name itself, derived from the Latin word for heat, is a whisper of the region's nature, a place of extremes. But the name barely captures the truth of its origin. This is not merely a crater, it is a scar, a wound left upon the world from a time when the solar system was young and chaotic, a place of wandering giants of rock and ice. To understand Mercury, we must first learn to read this scar, to trace its edges, and feel the echo of the moment it was born. From our vantage point, the basin unfolds. It is a colossal circular plain, more than 1,500 kilometers across. Imagine a feature so large that if it were placed on Earth, it would swallow entire nations whole. It is a shallow sea of solidified lava encircled by a ring of mountains that rise like a frozen shockwave kilometers high. These are the Caloris Montes, the rim of the impact fractured and slumped over eons, but still standing as silent sentinels to a cataclysm. The floor of the basin is not smooth, but a complex mosaic of ridges and fractures, arranged in a pattern that speaks of both immense stress and slow geological healing. It resembles the skin of an old reptile, or the cracks in drying mud, a pattern of tension and release frozen on a planetary scale. Let us close our eyes for a moment and allow our imagination to travel back in time. Not just years or centuries, but billions of years, to a time roughly 3.8 billion years ago. The sun, younger and perhaps a little dimmer, illuminates a solar system still finding its equilibrium. Mercury, newly formed, orbits its star, its crust still cooling its face, yet unwritten. And from the darkness, something is coming. It is an object at least 100 kilometers wide, a protoplanet, a mountain range, given celestial velocity. It travels in silence, for there is no air to announce its approach, no friction to set it ablaze in a fiery warning. It is simply a ghost of immense mass on a collision course with destiny. The moment of impact is an event beyond human comprehension. It is not an explosion in the way we understand it on Earth. It is a transfiguration. In an instant, a silent flash of light, brighter than the sun itself, blooms on Mercury's surface. The energy released is equivalent to trillions of hydrogen bombs, an unimaginable force that does not merely carve a hole, but liquefies the very planet. The asteroid and a vast portion of Mercury's crust are vaporized, turning solid rock into an incandescent gas that expands outwards in a fleeting, superheated atmosphere. Below the point of impact, the planet itself recoils. A shockwave of seismic energy, a pulse of pure physical force begins to propagate through Mercury's rocky mantle and its dense iron core. It travels not across the surface, but through the heart of the world. Simultaneously, on the surface, a ring of molten rock is thrown upwards and outwards, splashing into a mountainous tsunami that freezes mid-crest as it cools, forming the Caloris Montes we see today. The center of the impact zone, momentarily, a liquid rebounds like a droplet hitting water, creating a central peak that likely collapsed back under its own immense weight, leaving the vast, flat basin floor. Lava drawn up from the planet's molten depths floods the newly formed depression, smoothing over the worst of the devastation and creating the vast plain we now observe. All of this happens in minutes. A planetary lifetime of geological change is compressed into the span of a breath. A world is reshaped, a history is written, and then silence returns. A profound, ringing silence punctuated only by the slow settling of dust and the gradual cooling of incandescent rock under the pale light of the young sun. The story, however, does not end there. The energy of the Caloris impact was so immense that it did not simply dissipate on one side of the planet. Remember the shockwave that traveled through Mercury's core. It journeyed through thousands of kilometers of molten iron and rock, a focused wave of unimaginable pressure. And on the precise opposite point of the globe, the antipode of the impact, all of that energy converged. Let us now shift our perspective, allowing our vessel to slowly orbit this silent world, to travel to the other side. Here we find a landscape so strange, so utterly chaotic, it is known to planetary scientists simply as the weird terrain. There is no other feature like it in the solar system. It is a vast area of hills, valleys, and complex ridges jumbled together with no apparent order. The ground looks as though it was shattered, scrambled, and then flash frozen in place. Smooth plains are broken into a maze of angular blocks. Craters that existed before the event are distorted, their circular rims compressed and fractured. This is the echo of Caloris. The seismic waves traveling through the planet's core met at this exact spot. As they erupted on the surface, they lifted and tore the crust apart, shaking it with such violence that the very ground was churned into a chaotic jumble. Mercury rang like a bell, and this is the place where the sound waves converged into a deafening silent crescendo. It is perhaps the most powerful evidence of the impact scale. The event was so violent it didn't just leave a scar on one side. It inflicted a unique and lasting wound on the other. It is a geological conversation, a call and response written in stone across an entire world. Observing it now in the stillness of space is a humbling experience. We are reading a story told across a distance of billions of years and thousands of kilometers. The Caloris Basin and the weird terrain are two halves of the same sentence, two parts of a single, terrible, and creative act. It reminds us that planets are not static objects. They are dynamic living bodies with histories of violence, healing, and change. The scars they bear are not signs of imperfection, but pages in their autobiography. They tell of survival. For eons, this enormous feature lay in darkness, half hidden from our view on Earth due to Mercury's tidally locked orbit. It was only when our first robotic emissary, Mariner 10, flew past in the 1970s that we saw it for the first time. The probe captured images of a Terminator line the boundary between day and night, creeping slowly across a vast ringed basin. It was a stunning revelation, a feature that hinted at a past far more dramatic than we had ever imagined. Subsequent missions like Messenger have mapped it in its entirety, revealing the intricate details of its floor, the composition of its volcanic plains, and the strange hollowed-out pits that suggest volatile materials are still ever so slowly escaping from beneath the surface. The heat that gave Caloris its name is not just a relic of its fiery birth. Because of Mercury's eccentric orbit, the basin endures some of the most intense solar radiation in the entire solar system. As the planet makes its closest approach to the Sun, a point known as perihelion, the Sun can appear to hang almost stationary in the sky above this region, baking the ground at temperatures hot enough to melt lead. It is a place of fire in its past and fire in its present. And yet, despite this incredible heat, the basin is also a place of deep cold. The long, slow night on Mercury allows temperatures to plummet to hundreds of degrees below zero. Scientists believe that within some of the craters near Mercury's poles, in regions of permanent shadow, that the sun's rays have never touched water ice, may still exist a fragile memory of water in a world defined by fire. As we continue our gentle orbit, we watch the sun's light move across this ancient landscape. The low angle of the light throws the mountains of the Caloris Montes into sharp relief, their long, dark shadows stretching for hundreds of kilometers across the basin floor. The shadows move with an almost imperceptible slowness, a crawl so patient it seems to measure time in geological ages rather than hours. This scar, a monument to a violent instant that was over in minutes, is now painted by a light that moves with the patience of eternity. To watch the sun climb over the fractured rim of Caloris is not to witness a morning unfold, but to feel an entire epoch passing in a single silent dawn. The hands on a clock here would not sweep, they would grind. And it is this strange, languid passage of time, this long, slow day, that we must now turn our attention to, for it shapes everything about this world, from its searing heat to its frozen nights. Our imaginary vessel settles onto the floor of a wide, shallow basin, a place chosen for its view of the eastern horizon. The landing is a whisper, a settling of dust in a vacuum where no sound can travel. Outside, the universe is stark and silent. The ground beneath us is a fine, dark powder, the consistency of flour churned over billions of years by micrometeorites, and the relentless cycle of extreme temperatures. We have arrived in the deepest part of night, a night that has lasted for weeks and will last for weeks more. The sky above is a perfect bottomless black, punctured by the fierce, unwavering light of distant stars. With no atmosphere to blur their edges or make them twinkle, they are not gentle points of light, but sharp, diamond-hard specks drilled into the fabric of space. The Milky Way is a brilliant, textured sash of light more vivid and clear than any terrestrial view could ever offer. This is the raw, unfiltered cosmos. The silence is not merely an absence of sound. It is a presence of physical weight that presses in from all sides. It is the silence of stone and vacuum, the silence of a world that has never known wind or water, a world that holds its breath for an eternity. We wait. We attune ourselves to a different clock, not of minutes and hours, but of the slow, deliberate mechanics of the solar system. Here, patience is not a virtue. It is a prerequisite for existence. The ground beneath is impossibly cold, a cold that leaches heat from anything. It touches a temperature that would freeze gases we breathe into solid form. In this profound chill, we turn our attention eastward toward a horizon that is a perfectly sharp, curved line dividing the regolith below from the star field above. And then it begins, not as a soft glow, not as a gentle wash of color, but as an almost imperceptible change in the blackness of the horizon. It is a line of pure, incandescent energy, the first hint of the sun's corona peeking over the edge of the world. It is a sliver of light so intense it seems to cut rather than illuminate. There is no dawn chorus, no warming breeze. There is only this silent, searing blade of light slowly, painstakingly drawing itself across the curve of the planet. This is the terminator, the line between night and day, and it moves with an agonizing slowness. On Earth, this line sweeps across continents in minutes. Here, its journey is a geologic event. To watch it is to witness time itself stretched thin. The first rays of this alien sunrise touch the highest peaks of the crater rims in the distance. They catch fire, their tips glowing a brilliant incandescent white, while their bases remain plunged in absolute blackness. The contrast is absolute. There is no twilight here, no gentle diffusion of light. There is only the binary state of pure illumination and perfect shadow. The shadows are not the soft gray things of Earth. They are pools of pure void so dark and sharp-edged they look like holes cut out of reality itself. And they are immense, stretching for miles across the cratered plains. As the line of light advances, these shadows retreat with a majestic, unhurried grace. The movement is so slow that you cannot perceive it in real time. You must look away for a time, perhaps an hour, perhaps several, and then look back to notice the change. A small rock that was in darkness is now bathed in light. A crater wall that was a black semicircle now has a sliver of its inner slope illuminated. The advance of the Terminator across the ground before you is slower than the hour hand on a clock. To remain here, to simply watch this dawn, is to enter a meditative state dictated by the planet itself. The mind, so accustomed to the rapid pulse of terrestrial life, is forced to decelerate. Thoughts that usually race are compelled to slow their pace to match the crawl of the light. We are witnessing the direct consequence of Mercury's strange and beautiful dance with its star. This world spins on its axis with a slow, deliberate rhythm, completing 3 full rotations for every 2 times it orbits the Sun. This is what astronomers call a 3-2 spin-orbit resonance. It is a gravitational lock, a stable harmony born from millennia of tidal forces. The practical effect of this cosmic waltz is astonishing. A single day on Mercury, the time from one sunrise to the next, lasts for 176 Earth days. Imagine that. A morning that stretches for 6 of our weeks. An afternoon that lasts just as long, followed by a night of equal length. Our entire concept of a day, a cycle of work, rest, and renewal is rendered meaningless here. A single Mercurian dawn is a season. To live here would be to abandon the fundamental rhythm that has shaped all life on our home world. It would be to learn to measure life not in days, but in the slow creep of a shadow across a crater floor. It would be to understand time not as a river, but as a vast, slowly turning wheel. Now more of the sun's disk has appeared. It does not rise so much as it grinds its way into the sky. Its sheer size is breathtaking. Being so close to the heart of the solar system, the sun appears more than twice as large as it does from Earth. It is not a friendly yellow orb, but a monstrous blazing furnace of white-hot energy. Its light is pure and punishing. As the raw sunlight touches the ground, the landscape transforms. The surface, which was cryogenically frozen just moments before, begins to heat at an incredible rate. The muted grays of the regolith begin to shimmer. The dust itself, rich in silicates and iron, takes on a warmer, almost metallic sheen under the unfiltered glare. The temperature of the rock beneath our feet will climb from nearly 200 degrees below 0 Celsius to over 400 degrees above. This is a world of impossible extremes, and the dawn is the catalyst for this violent transition. We watch as the light fills the basin. Features that were invisible in the darkness now spring into sharp relief. Every pockmark, every small stone, every ripple in the dust casts its own miniature razor-sharp shadow. The landscape is a study in brutal clarity. There is no haze, no atmosphere to soften the view. You can see to the horizon with perfect crystalline focus. The detail is overwhelming, a fractal complexity stretching out in every direction. The sun continues its impossibly slow ascent. Our earthbound instincts scream that it should be higher, that noon should be approaching. But here, hours have passed, and the sun has barely cleared the distant crater walls. It hangs in the black sky like a colossal spotlight, its progress measured in fractions of a degree. Its journey upward is so languid, so contrary to every celestial motion we have ever known, that the mind begins to question what it is seeing. And as we settle into this new, vastly expanded sense of time, watching the great star on its arc, a deeper strangeness begins to reveal itself. The motion, already so slow as to be almost imperceptible, seems to be changing. The steady, inexorable climb appears to falter. In this sky, where cosmic laws are laid bare, the sun, the very anchor of our solar system, seems to hesitate. It is the beginning of a celestial spectacle that defies all earthly intuition, a moment where the great clockwork of the cosmos performs its most bewildering trick. The long dawn is only the first act in a drama that will see the sun itself appear to stop, and even for a time to reverse its course across the sky. From the silent cockpit of our vessel, the long Mercurian night continues to stretch into a profound, unbroken blackness. The stars here do not twinkle. They are sharp, unwavering points of diamond dust scattered on blackest velvet. There is no atmosphere to make them dance, no veil of air to soften their ancient light. Out there on the regolith floor, our shadow is an absence. Within an absence, a patch of deeper darkness where the starlight cannot reach. The universe feels immediate, raw, and unfiltered. Time itself seems to have slowed, each passing hour a long, deep breath in the slumber of a world. We wait for a sunrise that is not measured by the familiar rhythm of Earth, but by the grand, unhurried mechanics of the inner solar system. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, a change begins. It is not a color, not a soft blush of pre-dawn light as we might know it. Instead, it is a sharpening of the eastern horizon. The jagged line of the crater rim opposite us ceases to be a silhouette and begins to acquire a razor-thin edge of silver, a line of impossible brightness etched against the void. This is the sun's corona, its ethereal atmosphere reaching out across millions of kilometers of vacuum to herald the star's arrival. The light grows not gently, but with a fierce, commanding presence. Within minutes, the silver line bleeds into a blinding arc of pure white fire, and then it rises. The sun, as seen from Mercury, is a spectacle of overwhelming scale. It is nearly 3 times larger in this sky than in our own, a vast seething orb that does not simply illuminate the landscape, but dominates it. As its upper limb clears the horizon, it casts shadows that are long, stark, and perfectly defined. Every rock, every grain of dust throws a precise knife-edge silhouette stretching for kilometers across the basin floor. The gray powdered surface around us is instantly transformed, bathed in a light so intense it feels more solid than ethereal. The world outside is no longer black, but a stark monochrome landscape of brilliant white and absolute black. The sun climbs a great silent furnace ascending into the starless daytime sky, and the long shadows begin their slow retreat. We watch its deliberate, steady climb. For hours it follows the expected path, a godlike lamp moving across the celestial dome. But Mercury holds a secret, a strange and beautiful anomaly born from the unique character of its journey around this star. To understand it, we must leave the surface for a moment and picture the planet's path from above. Most planets trace an orbit that is nearly a perfect circle. Mercury, however, follows a different route. Its path is a pronounced ellipse, a stretched and elongated loop. This means that for part of its 88-day year, it is much farther from the sun, and for another part, it is significantly closer. And just like a stone swung on a string, the laws of gravity dictate that as Mercury swings in closer to the sun, its orbital speed dramatically increases. It hurtles through space racing to complete the tightest part of its turn around the star. This point of closest approach is called perihelion, and it is here, as the planet is moving at its fastest, that the celestial magic happens. For a brief period, something extraordinary occurs. Mercury's speed in its orbit, its velocity as it travels around the sun temporarily becomes faster than the speed of its own rotation, its slow turn on its axis. Imagine 2 runners on concentric tracks. The runner on the inside track is the planet's rotation, moving at a slow, constant jog. The runner on the outside track is the planet's orbit, and as it nears perihelion, it breaks into a full sprint. For a few moments, the sprinting outer runner actually overtakes the jogging inner runner. From the perspective of the jogger, the sprinter would appear to move forward, then stop, and then briefly move backward before being left behind again. This is precisely what we are about to witness, not with runners, but with the sun itself. From our vantage point on the surface, we are on that inner track carried along by the planet's steady rotation. The Sun's apparent motion across the sky is a result of this rotation. But as Mercury as a whole accelerates in its orbit, that orbital motion begins to counteract the rotational motion. And so, we see it begin. The Sun, which had been steadily climbing, seems to slow its ascent. Its movement becomes languid, almost hesitant. The shadows on the ground, which had been shrinking with predictable regularity, now shorten at a crawl. The celestial clockwork is winding down. Then, with an almost impossible grace, the great star comes to a complete halt. It hangs there in the black sky, motionless. For a time that feels both fleeting and eternal, the solar system's prime mover is perfectly still. It is a moment of profound cosmic quiet, a pause in the grand rhythm of the heavens. The laws of physics, which we associate with unstoppable momentum, have conspired to create a moment of perfect stasis. The brilliant orb simply hovers a fixed point of light and energy against the void. No wind blows, no sound is made. The universe seems to hold its breath. Then the ballet continues. The Sun begins to move again, but not forwards. It drifts backward. Slowly, elegantly, it retreats along the very same path it just climbed. The shadows on the ground, which had been shrinking, now begin to lengthen again, stretching back out across the crater floor. It is a second dawn in reverse, a sunrise that has changed its mind. For the next earthly day or so, the Sun will travel west in the sky, a brief, defiant contradiction to the normal flow of a planet's day. This is the retrograde Sun of Mercury. It is not an illusion, but a true astronomical phenomenon. It is the visible manifestation of a planet's lopsided waltz around its star. From certain longitudes on Mercury's surface, this event means the Sun will rise partially set back below the horizon, and then rise again. A double sunrise. From other locations like ours, we see it rise, pause, reverse pause again, and then finally resume its journey toward noon. We watch captivated as the Sun completes its backward journey. It slows once more, finds its point of stillness for a second time, and then, as Mercury pulls away from its perihelion and its orbital speed decreases, the normal order is restored. The planet's rotation once again becomes the dominant motion. The Sun resumes its slow, inexorable march eastward across the sky, climbing higher and higher. The shadows shrink again. The landscape is once more a predictable world of light and shade, governed by a steady celestial clock. But something has changed. We have witnessed a secret handshake between gravity and momentum, a wrinkle in the fabric of celestial time. It is a powerful reminder that the universe is not always the simple, predictable machine we imagine it to be. Its fundamental laws can create moments of poetry, of surreal beauty that defy our earthbound intuition. The Sun that stands still is not a miracle, but it feels like one. It is the signature of a world unlike any other, a world of extremes of fire and ice, and of time that can stop and turn back on itself. Now, the Sun's strange dance is over. Its path is once again straightforward, its destination clear. It climbs relentlessly toward the zenith, the highest point it will reach in the Mercurian sky. As it rises, its power seems to grow exponentially. The light it casts is no longer just a tool for vision. It becomes a presence, a physical force pressing down upon the surface. The rocks outside, once starkly defined, begin to shimmer in the growing heat. The fine dark dust of the regolith begins to absorb the immense energy pouring down upon it, and the very ground itself starts to radiate an invisible, palpable warmth. The shadow of our small vessel shrinks, retreating toward us, until it is a mere puddle of black directly beneath our hull. We have passed through the magic of the morning and are now entering the crucible. The gentle wonder of the double sunrise is giving way to the raw, unblinking power of the blazing noon. The Terminator line arrives, not with the soft blush of a terrestrial dawn, but as a silent razored edge of pure light dividing the world into an empire of darkness and a new kingdom of fire. The gentle pinprick starlight that had been our only companion is not faded out, but instantly obliterated, consumed by a brilliance so absolute it feels like a physical force. The creeping edge of day moves across the cratered floor below with an unnerving speed, a tide of incandescence washing over the gray dust. Hills and ridges that were mere silhouettes moments ago are now cast in brutal, impossible relief. The sun on Mercury does not rise. It seizes the sky. From our protected vantage point, we watch the instruments register the change. The surface temperature, which had plummeted to nearly 200 degrees below 0 Celsius in the long night, begins a frantic vertical climb. It is a climb that has no equivalent in our earthly experience. It is the temperature of a baker's oven, then a blacksmith's forge, and then it continues relentlessly upward. Outside the regolith, the fine pulverized rock blanketing the surface begins to glow with its own stored energy. There is no air to warm, no gentle convection to distribute the heat. There is only the direct, unmediated fury of the sun, less than half the distance from its fire as our homeworld. The radiation is a constant, silent scream bathing the landscape in energies that would sterilize and destroy any unprotected life in an instant. As the sun climbs higher, approaching its zenith, the landscape transforms into something elemental. The shadows, which were at first long and dramatic, shrink back into their recesses. They become pools of pure, undiluted black, so dark they seem to be holes in the fabric of reality itself. On Earth, light scatters through the atmosphere, filling every corner, softening every edge. Here, there is no scattering. Light is a binary thing. It is either on, with a ferocity that strains our filters, or it is off utterly. A rock does not cast a soft shadow. It creates an adjacent void, a patch of the deep, cold space from the night before clinging to its base. Walking on this surface would be a disorienting journey through extremes, stepping from a crucible into a cryogenic freezer with every pace. The world outside is now a furnace reaching over 430 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead and tin. Through our most powerful lenses, the surface seems to shimmer, not from heated air, for there is none, but from the sheer thermal energy radiating from the rock. It is a landscape under immense silent stress. We are witnessing a world being actively unmade and remade with every long, slow day. There is no wind to stir the dust, no water to carve a canyon, no tectonic groan. The only force of erosion, the only agent of change, is the sun itself. It is a geology driven by light. And in this solar furnace, a strange and delicate feature emerges. In certain crater floors and plains, we see them shallow, rimless depressions with bright, reflective floors. They look like patches of fresh snow, impossibly white, against the dull gray rock. These are Mercury's hollows, one of its most profound and beautiful mysteries. They are not impact craters. They are places where the world is quietly vanishing into space. Scientists believe these hollows are formed when volatile materials mixed within the rock elements, like sulfur, potassium, or sodium, are heated by the sun to a point where they sublimate. They turn directly from a solid into a gas, bypassing the liquid state entirely. This gas then escapes into the vacuum of space, leaving behind these intricate etched pits. The ground itself is being hollowed out, molecule by molecule, by the sheer intensity of the light. Observing them is like watching a ghost at work. There is no visible motion. Yet we know this landscape is in a state of slow, constant disappearance. The bright floors of the hollows are the fresh, unweathered material that has just been exposed. The process is a form of cosmic alchemy where light turns rock into nothingness. The hollows cluster together in beautiful scalloped patterns, sometimes lining the central peaks of great craters like a delicate shining lace. They are a testament to the planet's hidden inner life, a geology of subtraction, a world shedding its own skin under the relentless gaze of its star. The silence is the most difficult thing to truly comprehend. In a terrestrial desert, even at its stillest, there is the faint hiss of wind over sand, the distant buzz of an insect, the sound of your own breathing carried on the air. Here the silence is absolute. It is not an absence of sound, but a presence of nothing. The violent heating of the surface, the sublimation of entire cliff, faces the constant bombardment of solar particles. All of this occurs in a profound, eternal hush. The universe performs its most dramatic acts without an audience and without applause. Looking down upon this blazing, silent world is like peering into the heart of a mechanism. We see the raw physics of the solar system laid bare. There is the source of energy, the sun. There is the recipient, the planet. And there is the interaction stripped of all the complicating, beautiful buffers of atmosphere, water, and life. It is a place of stark, terrifying clarity. The rules are simple. What is in the light is scoured by unimaginable heat. What is in the shadow is frozen by unimaginable cold. There is no middle ground, no gentle transition, no twilight. As the long day wears on, our vessel traces an orbit that brings us over the polar regions. The sun here never rises high in the sky. It hangs low on the horizon, its light striking the surface at a shallow, oblique angle. The shadows cast by the crater rims are immense, stretching, for miles, permanent fixtures of this polar landscape. And as we gaze down into the largest of these craters, a place named for the composer Chopin, our instruments detect something that seems utterly impossible in this sun-blasted world. The floor of this crater, and others like it, is a place the sun has never touched. For billions of years, the high crater walls have cast a permanent shadow, creating a pocket of reality shielded from the furnace of the Mercurian day. The temperatures in these abyssal depths do not climb. They remain locked in a perpetual cryogenic cold, hundreds of degrees below zero. And in these places of eternal shadow, our sensors pick up a faint but unmistakable signature. It is a signature that has no right to exist here on the doorstep of the sun. In the searing heat of the blazing noon, we find ourselves staring into darkness, contemplating the most profound paradox of this world. We have journeyed to the planet of fire, only to find hidden in its deepest pockets of cold the unmistakable presence of ice. But our journey now has a new purpose, a destination that defies the very nature of this world. We are no longer just fleeing the light or waiting for the night. We are seeking a specific kind of darkness, a darkness older than any night we have yet witnessed. Our trajectory bends away from the equator, climbing toward the planet's northern pole, a region where the laws of light and heat begin to behave in strange and wonderful ways. Here, the sun never rises high in the sky. It is a permanent horizontal glare, a lamp held level with the floor. From this high vantage, we see the Terminator line we once raced lose its stark definition. The shadows cast by the crater rims are no longer fleeting refuges that shrink and grow with the passing hours. Instead, they are impossibly long, stretching for miles across the plain's permanent fixtures of the landscape. They are spears of blackness that never retreat, fixed in place by a simple, profound truth of celestial mechanics. Mercury spins like a top that never wobbles. Its axis of rotation, the imaginary pole running through its center, stands almost perfectly upright as it orbits the sun. It has virtually no tilt. On Earth, our axial tilt of 23 degrees is the engine of our seasons. It is why our poles experience months of endless daylight and months of perpetual night. It is why the sun's warmth is distributed, allowing life to flourish. But Mercury, in its rigid, upright posture, knows no such gentle variety. The sun's rays at the poles always arrive at an extreme shallow angle. For the plains, this means a perpetual cold dawn. But for the deep places, for the basins and craters carved by ancient impacts, it means something else entirely. It means that their floors sunk deep into the planet's crust have not felt the touch of a single sunbeam in billions of years. They are pockets of eternity, locked in a cold that the rest of the planet cannot even imagine. They are the craters of eternal shadow. We descend toward one such crater, a vast circular depression named Prokofiev. Its rim is a jagged crown of rock, its sunward-facing slopes baked to a pale, cracked gray. The light here is thin and weak, casting long, distorted silhouettes that seem to crawl across the ground. The temperature of the rock beneath us, even in this perpetual twilight, is still well below freezing, but it is nothing compared to the cold we are about to enter. The crater rim is not just a boundary of rock and dust, but a threshold between two different realities. To cross it is to step out of the solar system as we know it and into a place that should not exist. As we glide over the edge, the change is instantaneous and absolute. The last weak horizontal rays of sunlight are sliced away. We are plunged into a darkness so complete it feels tangible, a velvet weight that presses in from all sides. The faint starlight that might have offered some comfort is entirely blocked by the high crater walls that now tower above us. There is no reflected glow, no atmospheric haze to scatter a few stray photons. There is only black, and with the blackness comes the cold. The temperature plummets not by degrees, but by hundreds of degrees. We fall from a manageable cold into an abyss of cold so profound it approaches the absolute zero of empty space. This is a cold that stops chemistry in its tracks, a cold that preserves. The silence here is different. It is not the empty humming silence of interplanetary space, but the weighted silence of preservation. It is the silence of a tomb, a sanctuary, a library where the books are made of ice and the words are molecules from the dawn of time. Our instruments, our only eyes in this perfect dark, begin to scan the crater floor below. We are searching for a ghost, a rumor, a signal that logic tells us has no right to be here on the doorstep of the sun. Radar pulses map the unseen terrain. Spectrometers sniff the near vacuum for the faintest trace of vapor. And then we find it. At first, it is just an anomaly in the data, a patch of ground that reflects our signals with a strange, unnatural brightness. It is more reflective than the surrounding rock, smoother, purer. We focus our sensors and the ghostly image resolves into a certainty. Here, in the coldest place, this side of the sun, we find its opposite, the molecular signature of water. It is not a glacier, not a skating rink of pristine ice. It is something far more subtle and perhaps more ancient. A deposit of water ice, frozen harder than granite, mixed with the dark dust of the regolith. In some areas, it is buried beneath a thin layer of other material, a dark blanket that has protected it from sublimation and micrometeorite bombardment for eons. This dark material is itself a profound discovery. Our instruments read the telltale signatures of complex organic compounds. Not life, but the very building blocks of it, hydrocarbons, molecules of carbon and hydrogen, the stuff of comets and ancient nebulae delivered to this world long ago. We are floating in an impossible sanctuary. Above us, beyond the crater rim, the surface of Mercury is being scoured by solar radiation, a landscape hot enough to melt lead. But down here, shielded by geology and geometry, is a pristine record of the early solar system. This ice is an archive. Each frozen molecule is a message from the past. It likely arrived here billions of years ago, carried on the backs of comets and asteroids that crashed into the young planet. Most of that water would have been instantly vaporized by the sun, boiled off into space. But a few lucky molecules thrown into the thin exosphere would have drifted randomly until they fell into one of these deep polar traps. Once in the shadow, they never left. They were caught frozen in place, joining a slowly growing deposit of cosmic travelers. The sun's relentless energy, the very force that makes Mercury a furnace, is part of the engine that delivered this water to its final frozen resting place. Here, in this absolute cold and dark, we can imagine the journey of a single water molecule. Born in the heart of a distant star, cast out into an interstellar cloud, drawn into the formation of our solar system. It becomes part of a comet, a dirty snowball traveling through the void for millennia. It survives a cataclysmic impact, with Mercury is thrown skyward as a single puff of vapor, and then by pure chance drifts into the waiting shadow of a crater like this one. It settles onto the frozen floor and comes to rest, its long journey finally over. It is a story of incredible odds, repeated trillions upon trillions of times to create the hidden reservoirs we now observe. This place rewrites the story of Mercury. It is no longer just a scorched, barren rock. It is a world of the most extreme contrasts imaginable, a world of fire and of ice, a planet that holds both the temperature of an oven and the temperature of deep space, sometimes only a few miles apart. This crater is a testament to the fact that even in the most hostile environments, pockets of stability and preservation can exist. The universe is more clever, more subtle than our simple assumptions often allow. It hides its secrets in the shadows. We found a whisper of water on a world of fire, a fragile truth preserved by a trick of light and planetary posture. But this is a surface secret, a delicate layer resting on the planet's skin. It makes one wonder what other colossal imbalances, what other profound secrets are hidden deeper still. This ice is an anomaly of density, light, and ethereal. Yet the planet as a whole behaves as if it is anything but. It is too heavy for its size, too dense. As we ascend from the cold, dark silence of this crater, leaving its frozen archive undisturbed, our thoughts turn from the surface to the core, from the ice on the crust to the mystery buried far beneath it. We turn our attention to the planet's very heart. As our journey carries us toward the pole, into the realm of perpetual shadow, we begin to understand that the darkness we seek is more than just an absence of sunlight. The ancient frozen water, hidden in the craters, is a secret kept by the planet's surface. But Mercury holds a deeper secret, still a darkness more profound and immense than any polar night. It is a secret of weight, of density, of a story written not in craters and scarps, but in the very substance of the world itself. To truly understand this place, we must leave the surface behind. Our exploration must turn inward, passing through the thin, brittle crust on a conceptual descent into the planet's silent iron heart. Imagine sinking beneath the regolith, that fine dust of shattered rock that blankets the entire world. We pass through layers of basalt and silicate, the cooled lava of ancient eruptions. This crust is surprisingly thin, a delicate shell stretched over the immense interior. It is scarred and wrinkled, a testament to the cooling and contracting of the world below. For a brief passage, we move through the mantle, a layer of rock that on a world like Earth would be a vast and dynamic region of its own. Here it feels like little more than a rind, a thin separation between the world we can see and the one we can only infer. It is a boundary that holds back a mystery of extraordinary scale. And then we arrive, not in a physical sense, but in an act of scientific imagination. We reach the edge of the core. It is not a sudden transition, but a gradual deepening of pressure and heat where rock gives way to metal. And it is here that the true nature of Mercury reveals itself. The core of this tiny planet is colossal. It is disproportionately, impossibly large. On Earth, our own iron core makes up about 17% of the planet's volume. Here on Mercury, the core accounts for over half the planet's volume. Its radius extends nearly 85% of the way from the center to the surface. Let that sink in. This is not a planet with a core. This is a core that wears a thin, rocky coat. It is an iron cannonball wrapped in a fragile layer of stone. This single fact redefines everything we thought we knew about how a planet is built. It is Mercury's defining anomaly, the central question mark that hangs over its entire existence. The sheer density of this world, a density nearly equal to Earth's, despite being so much smaller, is explained by this single staggering feature: an overabundance of metal, a heart of iron that beats with the slow, silent rhythm of planetary time. Why, how could such a world come to be? The cosmos does not often build things so strangely without a reason, and the reason is usually a story of great violence or extreme conditions. Astronomers have offered two primary narratives to explain Mercury's iron heart, two competing histories of its birth. The first is a story of catastrophe. In this telling, Mercury was not always the small, dense world we see today. It was once much larger, a protoplanet with a thick, rocky mantle, much like a young Earth or Venus. It orbited the Sun in a chaotic, crowded early solar system, a time when planetary embryos swirled and collided like celestial billiard balls. And one day, in an event of unimaginable scale, this larger Mercury was struck by another massive object, a protoplanet, perhaps the size of Mars. The impact was not a glancing blow, but a world-shattering cataclysm. The collision was so violent it blasted away the vast majority of Mercury's crust and mantle, stripping the planet bare. The lighter silicate rock was vaporized and flung into space, lost forever to the solar wind or recaptured by other worlds. What remained was the shattered, molten, and incredibly dense core, which pulled itself back into a sphere, scarred but whole. In this story, Mercury is a survivor. It is the remnant of a much grander world, a planet that lost its body but kept its soul of iron. It is a testament to the brutal architecture of planetary formation. The second story is less violent, but no less extreme. It is a story of environment, of being born in a difficult neighborhood. In this scenario, Mercury formed where it is today, in the hottest and most volatile region of the swirling protoplanetary disk that would become our solar system. Here, so close to the young, ferocious sun, the heat was intense. The solar wind, a torrent of charged particles streaming from our star, was a relentless force. In this environment, lighter materials, the silicates and volatiles that form the bulk of a planet's crust and mantle, simply couldn't survive. They were vaporized by the heat or blown away by the solar winds before they could ever clump together. Only the heaviest, most resilient materials could withstand the onslaught. Metals like iron and nickel, with their high condensation temperatures, were able to accrete, slowly building a world from the densest materials available. In this version, Mercury was not stripped of its mantle. It was simply prevented from ever forming a substantial one. It was born, dense, forged in the fire of the early sun, a world built from the heavy elements that refused to be scattered. Was it a victim of cosmic violence or a product of an extreme birthplace? The evidence is etched into the planet's surface chemistry, but the answer remains elusive, another secret the planet keeps. Whether it was stripped bare or born dense, the result is the same: a world that is fundamentally, almost purely, a metallic core. But this core is not just a relic of the past. It is not a cold, solid lump of iron. It is alive in its own slow planetary way. We know this because of another of Mercury's surprises, a secret discovered by the Mariner 10 probe in the 1970s and explored in detail by the Messenger spacecraft decades later. Mercury has a magnetic field. It is weak, barely 1% the strength of Earth's, but it is there. And critically, it is a global dipole field, much like our own, with a north and a south pole. This is profoundly important. A magnetic field like this is not a static property of a planet. It is generated by a process known as a planetary dynamo. For a dynamo to work, you need three things: a conductive fluid rotation and a source of heat to drive convection, a slow churning motion within that fluid. The implications are clear. Deep beneath the silent frozen surface at the heart of the iron core, there must be a vast ocean of liquid metal. The solid inner core, if it exists, is surrounded by a molten outer core, swirling in a slow cosmic dance. The planet's rotation, though slow, is enough to organize this motion, and the heat bleeding from the very center of the planet keeps the liquid iron churning. This motion of electrically conductive fluid generates the faint magnetic bubble that surrounds Mercury, a shield against the solar wind. This discovery transforms our understanding of the planet. Mercury is not a dead world. It is not simply a cosmic cinder. It has a beating heart, a slow, molten metallic heart that has been churning for billions of years, generating a magnetic signature that tells us of its hidden dynamism. The wrinkled crust, the great scarps and fault lines that crisscross the surface are the outward signs of this inner life, the skin of a planet contracting as its massive core continues to cool and shrink over eons. The surface may appear static, a museum of ancient impacts, but the interior is a place of immense, slow-moving power. This is the ultimate paradox of Mercury, a world that appears inert and unchanging, yet possesses a dynamic liquid heart that shapes its past, its present, and its future. Our journey inward has revealed a world far more complex than the one we see from afar. We descended through a thin veneer of rock to find an iron soul, a core so vast it defies easy explanation. We found a history written in two possible scripts, one of catastrophic collision, the other of fiery birth. And most remarkably, we found a hidden vitality, a molten ocean generating a magnetic whisper that travels across space. These are the facts, the data points, the scientific truths we have gathered. But what do they mean? Every feature of this world, from its scorched surface to its massive churning core, seems to be a piece of a larger puzzle. Each discovery feels less like an answer and more like a clue, a symbol. It is as if the planet itself is trying to tell us something, communicating a story about the nature of worlds, about resilience, about the hidden forces that shape a celestial body. This planet, named for the fleet-footed messenger of the gods, has brought us messages of its own, written in the language of physics and chemistry. And now, as we contemplate its iron heart, we are compelled to ask, what is the ultimate message that this messenger planet carries for us? To truly understand Mercury, we must listen, not for what it says, but for what it is. The planet itself is the message, a dense and ancient text delivered across billions of years. Its secrets are not whispered, but embodied. They are written in its very gravity, its strange dance with the sun, its scarred and silent face. We have journeyed through its history, traced its orbit, and stood in its shadowed craters. Now we pause, and we begin to read. The messenger, after all, has arrived, and its legacy is the story it carries. The first message is one of violent beginnings. Look upon the surface, this gray, pockmarked sphere. It is not merely a landscape, it is a memory. Each crater, from the smallest bowl to the vast expanse of the Caloris Basin, is a syllable in a story of cosmic chaos. In the youth of our solar system, this was not a place of silent orbits, but a maelstrom of creation and destruction. Protoplanets collided, debris filled the space between worlds, and gravity was a ruthless sculptor. Mercury was born in this furnace. It endured an era known as the Late Heavy Bombardment, a relentless assault that lasted for hundreds of millions of years. We see the evidence of this era on our own moon, but on Mercury, without the healing balm of plate tectonics or the soft erasure of wind and water, the wounds remain fresh, preserved under the hard vacuum of space. The planet is a museum of celestial violence, but its story goes deeper. The planet's oversized iron core tells a tale more dramatic than any surface impact. It suggests that in its infancy, Mercury was once much larger a world with a thick, rocky mantle like that of Earth or Venus. But something catastrophic happened. The leading theory imagines a collision of unimaginable scale, a rogue protoplanet, perhaps the size of Mars, striking Mercury, a glancing but devastating blow. The impact would have vaporized rock, creating a temporary atmosphere of molten silicate that was then blasted away by the ferocious solar wind. What was left behind was the battered, overdense heart of the original world. Mercury is not the planet it was meant to be. It is a survivor, a remnant, the dense core of a world that was violently stripped of its outer layers. This is its first stark message that the solar system we see today, so orderly and predictable, was forged in fire and impact, and that even a world can be unmade, its identity shattered, leaving behind only its resilient heart. The second message follows from the first. It is a lesson in endurance. To exist where Mercury does is to live in a state of perpetual assault. It is baked by unfiltered solar radiation, thousands of times more intense than what reaches our own world. Its day side reaches temperatures that can melt lead, while its night side plummets into a cold deeper than any natural freeze on Earth. It is a world of absolute extremes, a place where the very concept of a temperate middle ground ceases to exist, and yet it endures. Its survival is a quiet, stubborn miracle. Consider its magnetic field. For a planet so small and slow spinning, it should not have one. Yet it does, a faint but persistent bubble of magnetism that deflects some of the most punishing particles of the solar wind. It is a weak shield, but a shield nonetheless. Its existence is a puzzle that hints at a molten outer core, a liquid heart still churning within the ancient planet, a faint pulse of life in an otherwise static world. And consider its exosphere, that ghost of an atmosphere so thin it is barely present. It is constantly being scoured away by sunlight and solar particles, but it is also constantly being replenished by them as they kick atoms from the surface up into a fleeting, delicate dance. It is a breath taken and released over and over, an act of persistence in the face of oblivion. Perhaps the greatest testament to its resilience is the secret it keeps in its polar shadows. The water ice hiding just meters away from the sun's unbearable furnace is a profound statement. It tells us that even in the most hostile environments, imaginable sanctuary can be found. It is a message that survival is not always about strength, but about position. Not about confronting the fire, but about finding the one place where the shadow falls. The ice has likely been there for billions of years, a fragile inheritance from comets and asteroids protected by the simple geometry of a tilted axis and a deep crater. Mercury teaches us that endurance is not a loud battle, but a quiet, patient act of finding shelter and holding on. This leads us to the third, and perhaps the most beautiful of Mercury's messages, the wisdom of paradox. The planet is a symphony of contradictions, a place where opposites are not just reconciled, but are essential to its identity. It is a world of fire and ice, coexisting in a stable, permanent embrace. The blinding light of the sun-scorched plains and the absolute eternal dark of the polar craters are two faces of the same world. One cannot be understood without the other. Mercury shows us that the most extreme opposites can be neighbors, and that a single reality can contain multitudes that we, in our search for simple categories, might think impossible. Then there is the paradox of its motion. In myth, Mercury was the fleet-footed messenger Hermes, with his winged sandals darting across the heavens. And indeed, the planet lives up to this name. It completes its journey around the sun in a mere 88 Earth days, the fastest of all the planets. From our perspective, it is a blur of motion, a restless traveler. Yet if you were to stand upon its surface, you would experience a slowness that is almost beyond comprehension. The planet rotates just once every 59 Earth days. A single day on Mercury from one sunrise to the next lasts for 176 Earth days, longer than its entire year. Imagine that. The swift messenger is also the master of stillness. While it hurtles through space, its sun crawls across the sky with an agonizing languor. There are moments in its orbit near its closest approach to the sun where the sun actually appears to stop, move backward for a time, and then resume its slow march forward. This is the paradox of the messenger who carries an urgent cosmic message, but delivers it with infinite patience. It tells us that speed and slowness are relative, that one can be in a great hurry and yet experience a profound stillness within that journey. The message is not just in the arrival, but in the long, slow passage. Bringing these messages together, we see how science and myth converge. Hermes was not just a messenger. He was the god of boundaries and transitions, the guide of souls between the world of the living and the underworld. He was the god of interpreters, of those who deciphered meaning. Mercury, the planet, is all of these things. It lives on the ultimate boundary, the threshold between the sun's overwhelming power and the cold, dark emptiness of the outer solar system. It is a guide, its ancient surface, a map to the solar system's violent past. And it is a text that we must learn to interpret its strange chemistry, its dense core, and its paradoxical motions, all containing pieces of a larger truth. The planet's legacy, then, is a form of cosmic wisdom. It does not offer easy answers, but it presents us with profound truths written in the language of physics and time. It tells us that our peaceful cosmic neighborhood is an illusion born of a violent past. It shows us that resilience can be found in the most unlikely of places, and that survival is often a quiet act of finding shade. And it teaches us that reality is woven from paradox, that the fastest journey can contain the deepest stillness, and that fire and ice can share the same home. This is the code we came here to decipher. The message is not a single sentence, but a perspective. It is a lesson in humility, a reminder that the universe is far stranger, more violent, and more beautiful than we often allow ourselves to imagine. We have received the message. We have read the text written in the body of this small, dense, and ancient world. Now, as our journey here reaches its natural conclusion, our gaze begins to turn away from the sun-bleached surface below. We lift our eyes from the messenger and look back along the path we traveled. Out in the blackness, past the orbits of Venus and our own home, past the faint glimmer of Mars, lies the rest of the story. The wisdom gained here feels vast, but it is incomplete until it is brought home, until it informs the way we see our own world. From this vantage point so close to the heart of it all, Earth is just another point of light, a distant, pale blue star. It is a homeward star calling us back, not just with gravity, but with purpose. The messenger's final duty, after all, is to complete the delivery. Message has been delivered. It was not a sound, not a word, but a state of being. The wisdom of Mercury is the wisdom of silence, of endurance, of proximity to a fire that can create and destroy. And with this understanding held gently in our awareness, the journey turns toward its end. The silent pull of our vessel reverses, and we begin to drift away back into the deep ocean of space from which we came. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the ground beneath us begins to fall away. The great Caloris Basin, that sprawling, wrinkled scar of an ancient impact, loses its sharp definition. Its concentric rings of mountains melt into subtle shadings of light and dark. The craters we explored each a universe of shadow, and stark sunlight begin to merge their individual stories, blending into a single collective history etched upon stone. We rise and the planet's curvature becomes more pronounced. The Terminator line, a soft gray brushstroke separating the searing day from the absolute cold of night. Mercury does not wave goodbye. It simply is. As we retreat, it offers no parting sentiment, only the quiet, unwavering truth of its existence. The features that felt so monumental, the towering cliffs, the deep dark hollows they shrink. The landscape that held our attention with its brutal alien beauty now simplifies its complexity, collapsing back into the elegant geometry of a sphere. The planet becomes a mottled gray pearl, then a perfect sun-bleached stone hanging in the velvet black. There is a strange and gentle melancholy in this departure, the same feeling one has when leaving a place that has taught you something profound, a place you know you may never see again, but will carry with you always. With every 1,000 kilometers we travel, Mercury relinquishes more of its detail, giving it back to the mystery of distance. It is a lesson in letting go, in understanding that to truly possess a memory, you cannot cling to it. You must allow it to become a part of you, a light within. And so we watch as Mercury shrinks further still from a stone to a pebble, from a pebble to a brilliant, unwavering spark reclaimed by the sun's blinding glare. It has returned to what it once was for us, a point of light in the heavens. But it is no longer an anonymous star. We have walked its surface in our minds. We know its slow, deliberate spin. We have felt the weight of its iron heart and the silence of its thin, borrowed atmosphere. It is a friend now, a known place in the cosmic neighborhood. As we turn our gaze away from the inner solar system, a different light begins to command our attention. It does not burn with the ferocity of the sun, nor does it have the hard reflective shimmer of Mercury. This light is softer. It is a delicate, exquisite jewel, a point of impossible color against the infinite void. At first, it is just a spark, but it is a spark that holds a familiar promise. It is a mosaic of brilliant blue, swirled with pearlescent white, and here and there a hint of emerald green and ochre brown. This is our home. This is Earth. From this vantage point, all the frantic energy, the noise, the divisions, and the deadlines that occupy our lives simply cease to exist. They are utterly absent. There are no borders visible from here, no signs of conflict, no monuments to our triumphs or our follies. There is only this stunning, fragile, and living world. The swirling clouds are the planet's breath, a visible sign of the atmosphere that shields us, that carries the scent of rain and the warmth of a summer evening. The deep, impossible blue of the ocean speaks of a world defined by water, the crucible of life, the source of our own being. Every single human story, every act of kindness, every song, every tear, every moment of discovery, all of it unfolded on that tiny, shimmering marble. The message of Mercury was one of endurance in the face of desolation. The message of Earth from this distance is one of breathtaking improbability. It is a vibrant, self-regulating system of impossible complexity and beauty, a living oasis in a desert of unimaginable scale. We see it not as a solid, immovable thing, but as a delicate interplay of systems of water, air, rock, and life all woven together in a dance that has lasted for billions of years. To see it hanging there alone, and yet so complete, is to understand that the most extraordinary thing in the entire cosmos might be the simple fact of a green leaf, the feeling of cool water on your skin, or the sound of a familiar voice. The journey home is a journey of integration. The lessons of Mercury are not left behind with the planet. They are the lens through which we now see our own world. We learned of Mercury's strange and elongated day, a single rotation taking longer than its year. It taught us that our own measures of time, our hurried minutes, our packed schedules are a local invention, a frantic rhythm we impose on a universe that operates on scales of majestic slowness. We can carry that mercurial sense of time back with us. We can remember that there is a deeper, slower pulse beneath the surface of our own lives, a geological patience we can tap into when the world feels like it is moving too fast. We saw Mercury's scarred and battered face, a record of 4 billion years of cosmic violence, and we saw its resilience. It did not shatter. It held its form. Its dense iron core gives it a gravity, a centeredness that has allowed it to weather every storm. We can carry that resilience with us. We can remember that our own scars are not signs of weakness, but proof of survival. They are the stories of the impacts we have weathered, the challenges we have overcome. Like Mercury, we are defined not by our wounds, but by our continued quiet presence. And most of all, we witness the profound difference between a world stripped bare and a world that is alive. Mercury showed us what a planet is without a thick protective atmosphere, without liquid water, without the gentle moderating touch of life. It is a world of violent extremes, a monument to raw physics. By seeing what it is not, we can finally truly see what Earth is. It is a gift. The air we breathe without a thought, the stable temperatures, the very ground that supports us. These are not givens. They are the products of a rare and precious planetary synergy. The message from the messenger planet was not just about itself. The ultimate message was about home. It had to take us to the edge of the fire, to a place of beautiful desolation, for us to turn around and see the miracle of our own gentle blue-green star. The journey ends as it began, in the quiet theater of the mind. The view of Earth grows larger, now the continents taking shape, the familiar patterns of our world welcoming us back. We descend through the layers of the atmosphere, that thin vital shield. We pass through the whisper-thin veils of the ionosphere, through the cold emptiness of the mesosphere, past the wispy ice crystal clouds of the upper atmosphere. The deep black of space gives way to a soft indigo twilight, then to a familiar comforting blue. We have returned. The voyage is complete. And yet something has changed. The next time you find yourself outside as the sun begins to set, as the sky deepens to a dark velvet, and the first stars appear perhaps, you will look to the horizon. And there, hugging the fading glow of the sun, you might see a bright, steady spark of light. You will know it is not a star. It is a world. It is the swift messenger, the iron planet, the ancient silent keeper of the sun's secrets. You will not see its craters or its cliffs. You will see only a point of light, but you will know the truth of what you are seeing. You will remember its slow dance, its fiery days, and its frozen nights. And in that moment of recognition, the vastness of the solar system will feel a little less vast and a little more like home. The sky will no longer be a distant canopy, but a neighborhood filled with familiar places. The message has been received. It is a message of perspective, of resilience, and of a profound, quiet gratitude for the gentle miracle of our own world. The messenger has done its work. Now we can rest. The great journeys, are not the ones that take us to new places, but the ones that allow us to see our own place as if for the first time. By traveling to the innermost world of our solar system, we have ultimately traveled deeper into ourselves. We have touched the silence that existed before life, and in doing so, have come to appreciate the symphony of our own living world. The universe is vast and filled with wonders, with burning suns and silent frozen worlds. But perhaps the greatest wonder is this: to be here now on this fragile, beautiful earth, with the capacity to look up at the sky, to imagine and to understand, and to know that we are not merely living on a planet, but that we are a part of it, as connected to its fate as Mercury is to the Sun. This understanding is a quiet gift, a peace that settles in the heart, a homeward star to guide us through the night.